I'm afraid the kidney function has declined significantly. It looks like a transplant is the only viable option now.
Thank you isn't enough. You gave me life again. I'll spend the rest of my days making sure you know how grateful I am.
I gave you my kidney. And 2 months later, you served me divorce papers. How could you do this after everything I've sacrificed?
I am grateful for the kidney, but I can't continue to live with you. I have found a new love.
The doctor's words echoed in the sterile hospital conference room. Stage for kidney failure. Without a transplant, Mr. Ease has maybe 6 months. A year if we're lucky. Ifeoma Ease sat frozen, watching her husband Chinedu receive the death sentence with the same stoic expression he wore in board meetings. 8 years of marriage had taught her to read the micro-expressions beneath his control facade, the slight tightening around his eyes, the way his fingers drummed once against his thigh before going still. He was terrified. What about the transplant list? Ifeoma asked, finding her voice. Dr. Namdi, the nephrologist, shook his head sympathetically. The waiting list in Lagos is 18 months to 2 years minimum. Chinedu doesn't have that kind of time. We need to test family members for compatibility. The sooner we find a match, the better his chances. The next week was a blur of tests. Chinedu's mother, Mama Chinedu, was tested first. Not a match. His 2 brothers, both living abroad, flew in for testing. Neither compatible. By day 7, hope was dimming, and Chinedu's condition was visibly deteriorating. Test me, Ifeoma said. Ifeoma, you don't have to, Chinedu started. I'm your wife. Test me. The results came back within 48 hours. Dr. Namdi called them both into his office, his expression carefully neutral in that way doctors have when delivering significant news. Mrs. Ease, you're a perfect match. Actually, more than perfect. I've rarely seen this level of compatibility outside of siblings. Your tissue markers align almost exactly with your husband's. If you're willing to donate, the transplant has an exceptionally high success rate. Ifeoma didn't hesitate. When can we schedule the surgery? That evening, in their Lekki mansion, Chinedu held her hands across the dining table. Are you sure about this? Kidney donation is major surgery. There are risks. You're my husband. I love you. I'm not letting you die when I can save you. Something flickered across his face. Guilt? Regret? But it was gone so quickly she thought she'd imagined it. I love you too, he said, but the words felt rehearsed. I'll spend the rest of my life making this up to you. The surgery was scheduled for 2 weeks later. During those 14 days, Ifeoma noticed Chinedu was distant, always on his phone, taking calls in other rooms. When she mentioned it, he blamed work stress and the upcoming surgery. Her best friend Adana was a constant presence, supportive and caring. Adana had been Ifeoma's closest friend since their university days at UI. 12 years of sisterhood. She'd been maid of honor at the wedding, and now worked as Chinedu's executive assistant at his real estate company. You're so brave, Adana said, helping Ifeoma prepare the night before surgery. Not many wives would do this. Chinedu would do the same for me, Ifeoma replied, believing it. The surgery took 8 hours. When Ifeoma woke in recovery, groggy and in pain, the first thing she saw was Chinedu's face. He looked healthy, color already returning to his cheeks. The transplant had worked. Thank you, he whispered. You saved my life. Then he left, said he needed rest in his own recovery room. She wouldn't see him again for 2 days. Ifeoma's recovery was brutal. The surgery had complications. Slow healing, persistent pain, exhaustion that felt bone deep. She'd been warned that living with one kidney would require lifestyle changes, but she hadn't anticipated feeling this vulnerable, this depleted. Chinedu, meanwhile, recovered beautifully. Within 3 weeks, he was back at work part-time. Within 5 weeks, he was keeping his usual 14-hour days. He came home late, distracted, always on his phone. I'm building back the business I let slide during the illness, he explained when she asked about his absence. I need to make up for lost time. Ifeoma tried to understand. She focused on her own recovery, on returning to her architecture firm, on being the supportive wife. Then came week 8, 2 months post-surgery. Chinedu came home early on a Tuesday, carrying a manila envelope. His face was set in the expression Ifeoma had learned to recognize from their marriage. Decision made, conversation just a formality. "We need to talk," he said. They sat in the living room of the home they'd furnished together, decorated together, built a life in together. He handed her the envelope. Inside were divorce papers, already filed, lawyers' signatures at the bottom, waiting only for hers. "What is this?" She felt like she was moving through water, her brain unable to process what her eyes were seeing. "I want a divorce," Chinedu said, not meeting her eyes. "I've already initiated proceedings. The papers are ready for your signature. I gave you my kidney 2 months ago. I saved your life." She heard her voice from far away, thin and confused. "And I'm grateful. Truly. But gratitude isn't love, Ifeoma. I can't stay in a marriage where I don't feel—" He trailed off. "Well, you don't feel what? I'm your wife. I literally gave you part of my body. And you'll be fairly compensated in the settlement. My lawyer has insured." "Compensated?" The word came out as a whisper. "You're talking about compensating me for my kidney, like it's a business transaction." For the first time, he looked directly at her. His eyes were cold, distant, already moved on. "What do you want me to say? That I'll stay in a marriage I'm not happy and out of obligation? That's not fair to either of us." "Who is she?" His pause confirmed everything. "There's someone else. Someone I've developed feelings for." "How long? Does it matter?" "How long, Chinedu?" 6 months. Before the diagnosis. Before the surgery. But I wouldn't have asked you for the kidney if I'd known you'd use it as leverage to— As leverage? Ifeoma stood, and the sudden movement sent pain shooting through her surgical site. "You think I gave you my kidney to trap you? I did it because I loved you, because you were my husband, because I thought we had a future. We don't." He stood too, backing toward the door. "Sign the papers, Ifeoma. My lawyers have been generous. You'll get a settlement that reflects your contribution. But I'm moving forward with this whether you contest it or not." "Who is she?" Ifeoma asked again, though something in her already knew. The way Adana had been so present, so helpful, so supportive through everything. "Adana," he said quietly. The name hit her like a physical blow. Her best friend, her sister, the woman who'd held her hand before surgery and told her she was brave. "You're leaving me for Adana? My best friend? The woman who was in this house every day while I recovered from giving you my kidney. It's not about you. This is about Adana and me finding real connection, real love." "Get out," she screamed. "Get out of this house. It's my house. Legally. My name on the deed. You'll need to find other accommodation. The settlement gives you 60 days. He left, just walked out while she stood in the middle of their living room, hand pressed to her surgical scar, trying to understand how the man who'd promised to make this up to her for the rest of his life was divorcing her 8 weeks after she'd given him her kidney. The divorce that followed was swift and ruthless. Chinedu's lawyers were thorough, experienced, expensive. Ifeoma, still recovering physically and completely destroyed emotionally, could barely mount a defense. She lost the house, lost the cars, got a settlement of 5 million Nigerian nairas, less than the cost of the surgery she'd undergone to save his life. The Lagos social circuit buzzed with gossip. Can you believe it? She gave him her kidney, and he still left her. She must have been a terrible wife. Poor Chinedu, trapped with someone who weaponized a medical donation. Mama Chinedu gave an interview to a society blogger. "My son is entitled to happiness. What Ifeoma did was kind, but you can't force someone to stay in a loveless marriage out of guilt. We're grateful for her sacrifice, but we must all move forward." 3 months after the divorce was finalized, Chinedu and Adana announced their engagement with a lavish party covered by all the society magazines. In the photos, Adana wore jewelry that Ifeoma recognized, pieces that had been part of the marital assets Chinedu's lawyers had claimed in the settlement, only to gift them to his new fiancée. The caption on Adana's Instagram read, "God's timing is perfect. Finally with the love of my life." At Chinedu's #blessed #new beginnings. Ifeoma sat in her small Yab apartment, 3 rooms compared to the 8-bedroom Lecky mansion, and stared at the post through tears that wouldn't stop falling. The kidney she'd given was keeping him alive, so he could build a life with the woman who betrayed her. She looked at her surgical scar in the mirror, angry red, still healing months later. She'd given him a piece of her body. They'd given her back nothing but pain. 6 months after the divorce, Ifeoma woke up at 3 p.m. for the 4th day in a row. Depression had settled over her like a physical weight. Some mornings, afternoons, really, since morning was when normal people woke up, she couldn't find a reason to get out of bed. Her architecture firm had let her go, citing performance issues after she'd missed too many client meetings during her recovery and subsequent mental breakdown. The small apartment in Yaba felt like a prison. Every surface reminded her of what she'd lost. The single bed compared to the king-size one she'd shared with Chinidu, the hot plate instead of a full kitchen, the lack of air conditioning making Lagos's heat unbearable. Her phone buzzed with a reminder for her follow-up medical appointment. She'd almost forgotten 6-month post-donation checkup. She dragged herself to the shower, wincing at the chronic pain that had become her constant companion. Living with one kidney was supposed to be manageable. The doctors had said they hadn't mentioned the fatigue, the dietary restrictions, the medical bills for checkups or settlement money was rapidly disappearing to cover. The hospital felt like a place of ghosts. Every corner reminded her of the sacrifice she'd made for a man who'd thrown her away like trash. Dr. Namdi, the surgeon who performed the transplant, looked concerned when he saw her. Mrs. Ease. It's Ms. Okafor now. I took back my maiden name. Ms. Okafor, I've been trying to reach you. You missed your 3-month checkup. I've been busy. He didn't call her on the obvious lie. Instead, he ran the standard tests, checked her vitals, reviewed her blood work. When he came back with the results, his expression was strange. Part medical professional, part something else she couldn't identify. Your kidney function is good. You're healthy, considering. But there's something else I need to discuss with you. Ifeoma braced herself for more bad news. At this point, what else could go wrong? Your blood work shows elevated HCG levels. I ran the test twice to be sure. He paused. Ms. Okafor, you're pregnant. About 28 weeks along. The world tilted. That's impossible. I would know if I was. But even as she said it, pieces clicked into place. The exhaustion she'd attributed to depression. The weight gain she blamed on inactivity. The tender breasts she'd thought were medication side effects. 28 weeks? That's 7 months. Yes, which means conception was likely right before your surgery. Given the trauma you've been through, the surgery, the recovery, the divorce, it's not uncommon for women to miss the signs. Ifeoma's hands went to her stomach, and yes, there was a swell there she'd been ignoring, hiding under loose clothing. Pregnant with Chinidu's child, the man who'd left her for her best friend, the man who was engaged to someone else, the man who'd taken her kidney and given her nothing. What are my options? She asked quietly. Dr. Namdi outlined them clinically, professionally, but when he finished, he added, whatever you choose, Ms. Okafor, I want you to know you're stronger than you think. You survived things that would break most people. Ifeoma went home and stared at her reflection for hours. At 7 months pregnant, her options were limited. And despite everything, despite the betrayal, the pain, the devastation, she couldn't bring herself to see this child as anything but innocent. This baby hadn't asked to be conceived on the edge of her world falling apart. This baby was hers, regardless of who the father was. She made a decision. She would have this child. But Chinidu would never know. He'd made his choice. He'd chosen Adana. He'd chosen to walk away. This baby was Ifeoma's, and hers alone. 2 months later, on a rainy November night, Ifeoma gave birth to a daughter. Her mother was the only one present, holding her hand to the labor, crying tears of joy when the baby was placed on Ifeoma's chest. Kamsi, Ifeoma whispered, looking at her daughter's perfect face. Her name is Kamsi. God makes things beautiful. The baby had Chinidu's eyes, his chin. Ifeoma looked at her daughter and felt a complicated mix of love and grief. This child would always be a reminder of what was lost, but she was also purely, perfectly herself. As Kamsi nursed for the first time, Ifeoma made a vow. Chinita didn't deserve to know about this beautiful life. He'd had his chance at family and thrown it away. This was her daughter, her secret, her strength. 3 weeks after giving birth, Ifeoma received an unexpected call. Ms. Okafor, this is Dr. Namdi. I need to discuss something with you about your ex-husband's medical situation. Can you come to my office? Curious and wary, Ifeoma bundled up newborn Kamsi and went. Dr. Namdi looked uncomfortable. I'm violating protocol by telling you this, but given the circumstances, I think you deserve to know. Chinita's body is rejecting the kidney. The anti-rejection medications aren't working as well as we'd hoped. It's progressive. What does that mean? It means eventually, maybe in a year, maybe in 5, he'll need another transplant. The kidney you gave him is failing. Ifeoma felt dark satisfaction flare, then immediate guilt for feeling it while holding her innocent daughter. There's something else, Dr. Namdi continued. Something I discovered during the transplant, but didn't share because you were married and it wasn't legally relevant at the time. He pulled out OLAB files. Your compatibility with Chinita wasn't just good. It was exceptional, almost familial. I ran extended genetic panels out of curiosity. He showed her the results. Genetic markers, compatibility ratios, technical terms that boiled down to one impossible truth. I think you should get a full DNA ancestry test, he said carefully, because these markers suggest biological relation. Ifeoma took the test, more out of desperation for anything to make sense of her suffering than actual belief it would show anything. 3 weeks later, the results arrived. She and Chinita shared a great-great-grandfather. They were third cousins, legally permissible to marry in Nigeria, but blood relatives nonetheless. That's why she'd been a perfect kidney match. That's why the transplant had been so successful. And if she was related to Chinita, that meant his family had known, or should have known. Ifeoma began investigating. She visited elderly aunts, poured through family records, connected genealogical dots. The truth emerged. Mama Chinita had done extensive background research before approving Ifeoma for marriage, standard practice in their social circle. She would have discovered the distant family connection, which meant Mama Chinita had known Ifeoma would be a compatible kidney donor. Chinita had shown early signs of kidney disease before their marriage. Ifeoma found old medical records during the divorce that his lawyers had accidentally left in a box of her belongings. Elevated creatinine levels, protein in urine, early warnings that had been hushed up. The marriage hadn't been love. It had been strategic. Mama Chinita had selected a bride who was not only suitable but compatible. Insurance against her son's degenerating health. They'd planned this. Maybe not the affair with Adana, but the kidney situation? They'd positioned Ifeoma as a backup organ donor from the beginning. Ifeoma sat in her small apartment, Kamsi sleeping in her arms, and felt her grief transform. The helpless despair that had consumed her for months crystallized into something cold and focused. Fury. They'd used her body, manipulated her love, discarded her when she'd served her purpose. And now his mother had the audacity to call her, begging for the second kidney when the first started failing. She began documenting everything. The timeline of the affair. She found emails, trace phone records that Chinita had been sloppy about deleting, the genetic connection, and what Mama Chinita must have known, the early kidney disease indicators. But more than that, she documented 8 years of marriage to a man who'd been lying the entire time. And in those 8 years as his wife, she'd learned secrets about his business. Tax evasion schemes, fraudulent documents, bribery. Chinita had built his real estate empire on corruption. And Ifeoma had evidence of all of it. She contacted a lawyer, not for the divorce. That was done for something bigger. I want to report financial crimes to the FCC, she said, and I have everything they need to build a case. As she organized her evidence, meticulously, methodically, Kamsi cooed from her crib. Ifeoma looked at her daughter, this beautiful secret, and made another vow. They'd used her once, taken her kidney and her love, and left her with nothing. Now she'd take everything from them. Legally, publicly, completely. The revenge would be slow, calculated, perfect, just like she was a perfect kidney match. Wait, she's pregnant with his baby, and he doesn't even know. And they only married her because they knew she could donate. If you're furious right now, smash that like button. Subscribe to African Tales by Zion because the next chapter shows her building her comeback while raising his secret daughter. Comment below. Should she tell him about the baby or keep it secret? What would you do? Hit that notification bell. Her revenge is about to get serious. 2 years after the divorce, Ifeoma looked nothing like the broken woman who'd signed those papers. She stood in her new office, not the small apartment in Yaba anymore, but a proper architectural firm in Victoria Island, reviewing plans for a government housing project she'd just won. The contract was worth 200 million Nigerian nairas, her biggest client to date. Mama, up! A small voice called from the corner playpen. Ifeoma looked at her daughter, 18 months old now, with Chinedu's distinctive eyes and her own stubborn chin. Kamsi pulled herself up, toddling over with that determination that made Ifeoma's heart swell. 1 minute, baby. Mama's finishing work. She'd rebuilt everything. After the EFCC investigation she'd initiated started gaining traction, her name had become associated with integrity, with someone who stood up against corruption. Corporate clients wanted that association. Government contracts followed. Ifeoma had stopped hiding. She'd stopped being quiet. She'd shown up at industry events with her daughter on her hip, daring anyone to question her. Single mother, divorced, kidney donor betrayed by her ex-husband. She'd owned her story, and instead of shame, she'd found power. Ms. Okafor, her assistant, poked her head in. You have a call. It's Mama Chinedu. Ifeoma hadn't spoken to her former mother-in-law since the divorce. She considered declining, then decided to see what desperation sounded like. Put her through. Ifeoma, the voice that had once commanded her, judged her, dismissed her, now sounded frail. Afraid. I'm calling about Chinedu. He's very sick again. The kidney is failing. Ifeoma said nothing. We need your help. The kidney you donated, his body is rejecting it. He needs another transplant, and you were such a perfect match before. And you're calling me because we need you to donate your second kidney. The sheer audacity made Ifeoma laugh. Actually laugh. Let me understand this correctly. Your son divorced me 2 months after I gave him my first kidney, married my best friend, took everything in the settlement, and now you want my second kidney? So I can spend the rest of my life on dialysis while he lives. We'll pay you, whatever you want. Please, he's dying. Ifeoma looked at Kamsi, who was stacking blocks, humming to herself. Tell your son to get in line for a kidney transplant like everyone else. I have a daughter to raise. I need my remaining kidney to be healthy for her. There was a sharp intake of breath. A daughter? You remarried? That's none of your business. Goodbye, Mama Chinedu. She hung up, hand shaking slightly. Kamsi looked up, sensing her mother's distress. Mama okay? Yes, baby. Mama's okay. But the call confirmed what Ifeoma's sources had been telling her. Chinedu was deteriorating fast. The rejection was aggressive. And Adana, who thought she was marrying a healthy, wealthy man, was now stuck with a sick husband whose fortune was crumbling under EFCC investigation. Ifeoma had spent 2 years building her case against his business. Every fraudulent transaction, every bribed official, every falsified document. She'd handed it all to EFCC investigators on a platinum platter, tied with a bow. The media had started covering it 6 months ago. Real estate mogul under investigation for fraud. The headlines got worse from there. Assets frozen, bank accounts seized, business partners fleeing like rats from a sinking ship. Through it all, Ifeoma had maintained careful distance, her involvement anonymous. The whistleblower protection laws meant her identity as the source stayed sealed. As far as anyone knew, EFCC had discovered the crimes independently. But Chinedu would know. He'd have to know. Her phone buzzed. A message from an unknown number. We need to talk. Please. Adana. Ifeoma deleted it without responding. 3 more messages over the next week. Then a call. Then Adana showing up at her office. "Please," Adana begged, looking haggard in expensive clothes that couldn't hide her exhaustion. "I know I don't deserve anything from you. I know what we did was unforgivable. But Chinidu is dying. He needs help. He has a wife for that." Ifeoma said coldly, "You wanted him so badly. Now take care of him." "I can't. I didn't sign up for this. He was supposed to be healthy, successful." "Ah, so you wanted the money and status. How tragic that you're getting the reality of being a caretaker instead. Kind of like how I was supposed to have a loving husband and ended up with a cheating narcissist who divorced me after I saved his life." Adana's face crumpled. "I'm sorry. We were wrong. I was wrong. But please, for old time's sake." For old time's sake? Ifeoma's voice could have cut glass. For 12 years of friendship you destroyed? For the sister I thought I had who stabbed me in the back? Get out of my office, Adana, and don't come back. After Adana left, Ifeoma's hands trembled as she poured herself water. Kamsi, playing with toys in the corner, looked up with those eerily familiar eyes. "Mama's sad." "No, baby, Mama's strong." That evening, Ifeoma did something she'd been avoiding. She looked at Chinidu's social media. The change was stark. The man who posted gym selfies and luxury vacation photos now posted nothing. But the society blogs tracked him anyway. Photos of him leaving the hospital, gaunt and gray. Articles about his health struggles, his failing business, his legal troubles. One recent photo caught her attention. Chinidu at a family gathering, looking skeletal, and in the background, barely visible, Mama Chinidu, staring at the camera with an expression Ifeoma had never seen before. Fear. They were all scared. The mighty Ease family, so proud of their wealth and status, watching crumble. Chinidu dying. Adana trapped. Mama Chinidu facing the consequences of her manipulations. Ifeoma posted a photo on her own Instagram that night. Her and Kamsi at her new office, the Lego skyline behind them, both smiling. The caption, "Building my empire one brick at a time." Crown #SingleMomSale, #ArchitectLife, #blessed. She didn't mention who Kamsi's father was. Let people assume she'd moved on, remarried, had a child with someone new. The truth was her secret weapon, held in reserve. A week later, the headline she'd been waiting for appeared. EFCC charges Chinidu Ease with tax evasion and fraud. Assets frozen pending investigation. His company collapsed within days. Contracts canceled. Investors fled. The Lekki mansion, the one that should have been partly hers, was seized as proceeds of crime. And through it all, Chinidu's kidney continued to fail. Ifeoma knew from her medical contacts that he was on dialysis 3 times a week now, that he'd been placed on a transplant list, but his rejection of the first kidney made him high risk, that his chances of finding another compatible donor were slim. She felt no satisfaction, no joy, just a cold certainty that justice, delayed though it might be, eventually came. Karma, it turned out, was a kidney that rejected you slowly, painfully, publicly. No way. His kidney is failing, and now EFCC has destroyed his business. And Adana thought she was getting a rich husband, but got a broke sick man instead. If you're here for the karma, smash that like button. Subscribe to African Tales by Zion because the next chapter reveals the baby's secret and shows what happens when the past catches up. Comment. Do you think he deserves to know about his daughter? What would you do with that secret? Hit that notification bell. The truth is about to explode. 3 years after the divorce, Ifeoma's phone rang with a number she'd blocked multiple times. "Ifeoma, please don't hang up. It's about your daughter." It was Adana's voice, desperate and frightened. Ifeoma was at the park with Kamsi, who was now 2.5 years old and running around with other children. She moved away from the playground so her daughter wouldn't hear. "What about my daughter?" "Chinidu is dying. He needs a kidney transplant urgently. We've tested everyone. Family, friends, even strangers through donation programs. No matches. But children can donate to parents. if we could test your daughter. The world stopped. Test him why daughter? Ifeoma's voice was dangerously quiet. You want to use my child for spare parts? Please, we're desperate. She might be a match, and children can donate one kidney and live normal lives. You listen to me carefully, Adana. You will never come near my daughter. You will never suggest harvesting her organs. She is 2 years old, and even if she was old enough, even if she was a match, I would die before I let you vultures touch her. But she could save. Save who? Save Chinidu? The man who divorced me 2 months after I gave her my kidney? The man who married you and destroyed my life? That man doesn't deserve salvation, and he certainly doesn't deserve my daughter's kidney. She's just a child. She wouldn't even remember. Ifeoma hung up, shaking with rage. How dare they? How dare they try to use Kamsi? What she didn't know was that Adana, increasingly desperate as Chinita deteriorated, made a catastrophic decision. She posted on social media, "My husband is dying. His ex-wife has a young daughter who could potentially save his life through kidney donation. We're begging anyone who knows Ifeoma Okafor to convince her to at least let us test the child. Children can donate kidneys and live full lives. Please help us save Chinidu." Folded hands, hashtag save Chinidu, hashtag kidney donation, hashtag please help. The post included a photo of Kamsi, taken from Ifeoma's public Instagram, holding a balloon at a birthday party. The internet exploded. Half the comments supported Adana. How can she refuse to save a life when it's just a test? The child probably doesn't even know him. What's the harm? This is cruel. But the other half, she's asking a toddler to donate an organ to the man who divorced her mother? This is manipulative. Leave that child alone. When Ifeoma saw the post, white-hot fury consumed her. They'd crossed a line. They brought her daughter, her innocent baby, into their desperate games. She called her lawyer. "I want a restraining order against Adana and the entire Ease family. And I'm giving a press conference tomorrow. It's time they learned exactly who Kamsi is." The press conference was packed. Ifeoma stood at the podium. Kamsi safely at home with her mother and faced the cameras with steel in her spine. "I'm here to address Adana Ease's post about my daughter. The post that included my child's photo without permission and asked strangers to pressure me into allowing medical testing on a 2-year-old. Reporters leaned forward, sensing something big. "First, let me be clear. My daughter will never be used for organ harvesting. She is a child, not a spare parts inventory. The fact that Adana thought it appropriate to publicly pressure me using my daughter's image is unconscionable." She paused, letting that sink in. "But there's something else you should know. Something Chinidu Ease and Adana don't know. Kamsi isn't just a child who could help. She's Chinidu's biological daughter." The room erupted. Cameras flashed. Reporters shouted questions. Ifeoma raised her hand for silence. "Kamsi was conceived before Chinita divorced me. I was pregnant during the kidney surgery. Though I didn't know it yet, I discovered my pregnancy 6 months after the divorce, when Chinita had already moved on with Adana." She pulled out documents, birth certificate showing conception date, medical records from her pregnancy. I chose not to tell him. He'd made his choice. He'd chosen Adana over the marriage, over the vows, over the woman who'd given him her kidney. He abandoned me at my most vulnerable. I owed him nothing. Certainly not information about the child I would raise alone. Her voice hardened. "So when Adana posts photos of MY daughter and asks the internet to pressure me into organ testing, she's actually asking me to let them harvest organs from Chinita's own child. The daughter he never wanted to know about. The daughter whose existence he's unaware of because he was too busy with his new wife 2 months after I saved his life." The press conference trended worldwide within an hour. Hashtag Kamsi's. Hashtag kidney betrayal. Hashtag justice for Ifeoma. The narrative shifted completely. Chinidu wasn't just a man who divorced his kidney donor. He'd abandoned his pregnant wife for her best friend. Within 24 hours, Adana's Instagram was deleted. The backlash had been vicious. Death threats, harassment. She fled social media entirely. But the real confrontation came 3 days later. Mama Chinidu arrived at Ifeoma's office, unannounced. Security called up, uncertain. Send her up? Ifioma said, let's finish this. The woman who walked into her office looked 20 years older than the imperious matriarch who dismissed Ifioma from her house 3 years ago. Mama Chinidu's eyes were red-rimmed, her expensive clothes hanging loose on a frame that had lost weight. I have a granddaughter, she said without preamble. All this time. You have nothing, Ifioma corrected coldly. You had a chance at a daughter-in-law who loved your son enough to give him an organ. You manipulated me, used me, discarded me. Now you want access to my daughter? To the grandchild your son doesn't even know exists? I didn't know you were pregnant. I swear I didn't know. And if you had known, would it have changed anything? Or would you have seen her as just another potential organ donor, like you saw me? Mama Chinidu flinched. I was wrong. About everything. I thought I was protecting my son by finding him a compatible wife. I didn't understand I was setting up everyone's destruction. Your understanding comes too late. Please, let me know her. Let me be part of her life. I'm dying too, cancer. Stage 3. I want to know my granddaughter before I go. Ifioma studied the woman who'd orchestrated so much pain. Cancer. The irony wasn't lost on her. On my terms, she said finally. Supervised visits. You will respect my boundaries. You will never mention organs, kidneys, or medical testing. You will be a grandmother to Kamsi if she wants you, but the moment you manipulate or use her, you're gone forever. Understand? Yes. Thank you. Don't thank me. I'm not doing this for you. I'm doing it so Kamsi has a choice to know her father's family, on her own terms, when she's old enough to decide. After Mama Chinita left, Ifioma stood at her office window, looking out at Lagos, the city where she'd lost everything and rebuilt even stronger. Her phone buzzed. A message from Dr. Namdi, who'd been supporting her throughout the chaos. Dinner tonight? I'd like to talk about something important. She smiled. Over the past year, their professional relationship had evolved into something more. He'd been there through Kamsi's terrible twos, through the EFCC revelations, through the press conference. Yes, she texted back, looking forward to it. That evening, as Dr. Namdi picked her up, Kamsi safely with her grandmother, he looked nervous. What did you want to talk about? She asked. Marry me, he said simply. Not because I pity you, not because I feel obligated, but because you're the strongest woman I've ever met. Because Kamsi deserves a father who chooses to be there. Because I love you both. Marry me. Ifioma looked at this man, the surgeon who'd opened up Chinidu to save his life, who'd later supported her in taking it back piece by piece, who'd fallen in love with her not despite her scars, but because of the strength they represented. Yes, she said. Yes, I'll marry you. Meanwhile, in a hospital room across Lagos, Chinidu lay in bed connected to a dialysis machine, his phone showing the press conference video on repeat. I have a daughter, he whispered to Adana, who sat in the corner looking hollow. I have a daughter, and she's beautiful and I'll never know her. We could fight for custody. With what? I'm broke, dying, and a public villain. Ifioma won. Completely. Adana left that night. Filed for divorce the next morning. Couldn't take it anymore. The sick husband, the poverty, the public shame. She wanted the rich, healthy Chinidu. This broken, dying man wasn't what she'd signed up for. The irony wasn't lost on anyone. She left him exactly as he'd left Ifioma. Except now he knew what he'd lost. And it was so much more than a kidney. For years after the divorce, Ifioma received a letter. It arrived at her office, handwritten, the penmanship shaky. Ifioma, I'm dying. Not because I'm telling you this to manipulate you. The doctors say I have weeks, maybe a month. The kidney failed completely. I'm not on the transplant list anymore. Too high risk, too many complications. This is it. I'm not asking for your kidney. I'm not asking for Kamsi's. I'm not asking for anything you haven't already given. But I'm begging for one thing. Let me meet my daughter. Once. Just once. I don't deserve it. I don't deserve anything from you. But Kamsi is innocent. She didn't ask to be part of this mess. Let me see her face. Let me tell her I'm sorry I wasn't there. Let me hold her hand for 5 minutes. Then I'll die and you'll never hear from me again. If you say no, I understand. But I'm asking anyway. Chinidu. Ifeoma read it 3 times. Kamsi, now 3.5 years old, was playing with blocks in the corner of the office, humming a song from her favorite cartoon. That night, she showed the letter to Dr. Namdi. They'd been married for 6 months now, and he'd been a father to Kamsi in every way that mattered. What do you think? She asked. It's not my decision, he said carefully. But whatever you choose, make sure Kamsi can live with it when she's old enough to understand. Kids ask questions about their biological parents. You'll need to be able to tell her you gave her every opportunity, or that you protected her, whichever truth you can stand by. Ifeoma thought about it for 3 days. Finally, she called the hospital. 1 visit, 30 minutes. Supervised. I'll be there the entire time. The hospital room smelled of antiseptic and death. Chinita was barely recognizable. Skeletal, gray, tubes and monitors everywhere. When Ifeoma walked in carrying Kamsi, his eyes filled with tears. Mama, where are we? Kamsi whispered, intimidated by the hospital setting. We're visiting someone, a man who's very sick. Chinita struggled to sit up. Hi, he managed. His voice was weak, ravaged. Kamsi behind Ifeoma's leg, peeking out shyly. It's okay, baby, Ifeoma said gently. This man wants to say hello to you. What's your name? Chinidu asked, though he knew, had known since the press conference. Kamsi, the little girl said quietly. That's a beautiful name. Do you know what it means? She shook her head. It means God makes things beautiful, and you are very beautiful. Kamsi smiled a little at that. Can I hold your hand? Just for a minute? Kamsi looked up at Ifeoma, who nodded. The little girl stepped forward and placed her tiny hand in Chinidu's skeletal one. Thank you, he whispered, tears streaming down his face. Thank you for letting me see you. You have your mama's smile. Her kindness. Be good to her, okay? She's the strongest, best person I've ever known. Mama, I asked the best. Kamsi agreed seriously. Always listen to her. And to your daddy, Dr. Namdi. He's a good man. Better than... He swallowed hard. Better than some fathers. Ifeoma watched this moment, her daughter meeting her biological father on his deathbed, and felt a complicated tangle of emotions. Grief for what could have been. Anger for what was. Relief that Kamsi would never wonder if she'd been kept from him deliberately. After 5 minutes, Kamsi got bored and wanted to look at the medical equipment. Chinita looked at Ifeoma. Thank you. I don't deserve this, but thank you. You're right. You don't deserve it. But she might need this memory someday. That's the only reason I'm here. I'm sorry. For everything. I was a coward and a fool, and I threw away the only real love I ever had. The kidney you gave me is the only part of you I get to keep, and even that's dying because my body, like my heart, doesn't know how to hold on to good things. Save it, Chinidu. I didn't come here for your apologies. I came so my daughter doesn't grow up wondering if I kept her from you out of spite. Is she happy? Does she have a good life? She has an amazing life. A mother who loves her. A father who chose her. Security, education, family. Everything you couldn't give her. Good. That's good. He closed his eyes, exhausted from even that short conversation. Tell her, when she's old enough to understand, that her biological father was a selfish man who made terrible choices, but that she was never one of them. She was the best thing I ever helped create, even if I didn't know it. Ifeoma gathered Kamsi. Say goodbye. Bye. Kamsi waved cheerfully, already thinking about the ice cream Ifeoma had promised on the way home. Goodbye, Kamsi, Chinita whispered. Ifeoma. But she was already gone, walking out of his hospital room with her daughter, who would grow up never knowing him, never missing him, never needing him. 3 weeks later, Chinita died, heart failure complicated by kidney disease. He was 39 years old. Ifeoma attended the funeral, not for him, but for closure. Kamsi stayed home with Dr. Namdi, too young to understand death. The funeral was sparsely attended. Adana was nowhere to be seen. Mama Chinidu sat in the front row, frail from her own cancer battle, and when she saw Ifioma, she stood. Thank you for letting him meet her. It gave him peace in his final days. I didn't do it for him. I know, but still, thank you. She paused. The supervised visits, can they continue? I don't have much time either. I'd like to know my granddaughter. Ifioma considered. Mama Chinita looked genuinely humbled, broken by the consequences of her manipulations. 1 visit per month. At my home, on my schedule. You bring her gifts if you want, but nothing extravagant. You talk to her like a grandmother, not like someone who owes you something. And if I ever suspect manipulation, you're done. Forever. I understand. That's more than fair. After the funeral, Ifioma visited the hospital where the transplant had occurred. She'd established the Second Chance Foundation 2 years ago, helping kidney disease patients who couldn't afford treatment. Not in Chinidu's name. In her own. She also ran Single Mothers Rising, a program helping divorced and abandoned women rebuild their careers, finances, and lives. Both programs were thriving. She'd turned her pain into purpose. That evening, at home with Dr. Nambi and Kamsi, she felt peace. Real peace. Mama, what's this? Kamsi traced a scar on Ifioma's abdomen during bath time. That's from when Mama gave someone a very special gift. What gift? A part of Mama's body to help them live. It taught me that I'm stronger than I ever knew. Does it hurt? Not anymore, baby. Not anymore. Later, after Kamsi was asleep, Ifioma stood in front of the mirror. Dr. Namdi came up behind her, wrapping his arms around her waist. You're thinking about him, he said. It wasn't a question. I'm thinking about all of it. The marriage, the surgery, the betrayal, the divorce. Kamsi, you, how I got from there to here. Regrets. She looked at their reflection, her surgical scar visible, his hand protective over it, their wedding bands glinting. No, I gave away a kidney and got my life back. I gave away trust and learned discernment. I gave away a toxic marriage and found a real one. I gave away innocence and found strength. And Kamsi is the best thing that came from the worst time. She's proof that beauty can grow from ashes. Think she'll ask about Chinidu when she's older? Probably. And I'll tell her the truth, age-appropriate, but truthful, that he was her biological father, that he made terrible choices, but that she's not defined by his mistakes. She's defined by who she chooses to be. Dr. Namdi kissed her shoulder, right next to the scar. You're an amazing mother, an amazing woman. I'm lucky you said yes. We're both lucky. We found each other in the wreckage and built something new. 5 years after the divorce, Ifioma stood in a different place than she'd ever imagined. CEO of a thriving architecture firm, wife to a man who truly loved her, mother to a bright, happy daughter, founder of 2 successful charitable programs. The best revenge hadn't been destroying Chinidu. He destroyed himself. The best revenge had been building a life so beautiful that his betrayal became just a chapter in her story of triumph. She'd given away a kidney and gotten her life back. Fair trade. The end. He died knowing he had a daughter he'd never really know. And she's living her best life with a man who chose to be a father. If you're satisfied with this karma, smash that like button. Subscribe to African Tales by Zion for more stories, proving that living well is the best revenge. Comment. Was letting him meet Kamsi the right choice or too kind? What was the most satisfying moment for you? Share this with someone who needs to know that betrayal doesn't define you. Your comeback does. Hit that notification bell for more powerful tales of resilience and justice.